everyone, and welcome back to the deep dive. We're diving into a topic today that I know a lot of you have been asking about, especially if you're thinking about or already are freelancing. Yeah, it's all about managing your money when you become your own boss.
It really is one of those things that comes up a lot, People don't always realize how different it is to handle your finances when you're self-employed.
It's a whole other ballgame, right? Luckily, you've shared some amazing articles and resources to help us unpack this whole thing. So we're going to dig into those today, especially when it comes to those irregular paychecks, those scary taxes, and what to do about retirement when there's no 401k waiting for you.
Yeah, we have to cover all that. Having a solid financial plan is super important for anyone running their own show, whether you're a full-time freelancer or a business owner, and we're here to make sure you've got the info to make those good decisions.
Perfect. Now, one thing that really stood out to me from what you shared is this idea of setting up a salary for yourself, even when your income is, well, anything but consistent. It's something I struggle with, that whole feast or famine cycle some months. Did you actually use this strategy when you first went freelance?
I did, and honestly, it can be a game changer. It's easy to just ride the wave of those fluctuating payments, but it makes a world of difference if you actually sit down, calculate your average income, say over 6 to 12 months, and then treat that as your salary. Each month, transfer that amount from your business account over to your personal account. It makes things so much easier.
So it's kind of like tricking yourself into a regular paycheck, even if the money coming into the business is all over the place.
Yes, exactly. It makes budgeting way less stressful and helps you avoid overspending during those good months because, and you know this, those lean months,
Yeah.
they always come back around.
Oh, tell me about it. You also mentioned something else that I think is super important, which is the idea of keeping your business and personal finances separate. I've honestly always just lumped everything together, but I'm starting to see why that's maybe not the best idea.
It can get messy.
Yeah.
Trust me, having those dedicated accounts, one for business income, one for expenses, one for taxes, it just makes everything so much clearer. Like you're finally getting that organized financial picture you need to really see how your business is doing.
It's like when I finally organized all my design files into folders. What a difference. Speaking of things that can be a little scary, let's talk about those lean months. How much should we even be putting aside in an emergency fund when we don't have that regular paycheck coming in?
That's where it gets real.
Yeah.
So while you might have heard 3 to 6 months of living expenses is enough for a regular emergency fund as freelancers, bump that up to 6 to 12 months.
Whoa, that's a big jump. I can already hear people thinking that's impossible. So what's the reasoning behind such a large amount?
Think about it this way. Imagine your computer crashes. As a graphic designer, that's your livelihood, right? A strong emergency fund means you can replace that computer without freaking out about paying your rent or buying groceries while you get back on your feet. Or worse, what if there's an unexpected illness? Freelancers don't usually get paid sick leave.
That's a really good point. Suddenly my emergency fund feels more like a just-in-case fund and not a true safety net. Okay, let's shift gears to something that I think makes even seasoned freelancers a little squeamish: taxes. No more magically withheld taxes from our paychecks. So how do we deal with self-employment tax and all that jazz?
It's definitely the part of being your own boss that people dread the most, but it doesn't have to be a nightmare, I promise. Basically, since you're now both the employee and the employer, you're on the hook for both halves of those Social Security and Medicare taxes, which totals 15.3% here in the U.S.
Okay, 15.3%. That's more than I was expecting. Is there anything we can do to make that pill a little easier to swallow?
Of course. So even though you're paying both halves up front, you can actually deduct that employer portion on your tax return, which ends up reducing your taxable income. Remember, all those business expenses we talked about, those are deductible too.
Deduction's my favorite word. Okay, let's talk about this whole quarterly tax payment thing. It seems like an unnecessary complication.
I know, it feels like it at first, but it's honestly meant to make your life easier in the long run. Basically, instead of getting hit with one giant tax bill every April, you make estimated tax payments 4 times a year based on your projected income for the year. It helps you avoid those nasty underpayment penalties, which, trust me, you don't want to deal with. And the IRS has this form 1040-ES, that helps you calculate these payments. Don't worry, the form sounds way scarier than it actually is.
Okay, I'm feeling a little less terrified of tax season already. Anything else we should keep in mind about these quarterly payments before we move on?
Just remember to file and pay on time, even if it's a small amount. The penalties for being late or not paying enough can really add up.
Yeah.
It's much better to overestimate and get some money back than to underestimate and end up with a penalty.
That's great advice. Now, let's dive into those magical deductions for freelancers that everyone always talks about. I keep hearing about these amazing write-offs, but it always sounds a little too good to be true.
Oh, they're very real, and they become your best friends when you're self-employed.
Hmm.
We're talking about everything from home office deductions, because your couch might be your new office, let's be real, to those essential business expenses like your software subscriptions, your internet bill, even that fancy new ergonomic chair your back will thank you for.
It's like a treasure hunt through your receipts, but instead of finding loose change, you find tax savings.
Right.
What about those big purchases, like if I need a new laptop or design software?
Those are usually depreciated over time. That means you deduct a portion of their cost each year. It is a bit more complicated, but that's what tax professionals are for. And speaking of professionals, don't forget about those deductions too. Hiring an accountant or lawyer might seem like an extra cost up front, but it's an investment that often saves you money in the long run. Plus, those fees. They're often deductible too.
This is actually making me excited to organize my receipts for once. Okay, let's move on to another big one for freelancers' retirement. It can feel kind of overwhelming when you don't have a company retirement plan, but in the materials you shared, you mentioned some really great options for freelancers.
Exactly. And the good news is you actually have more control and flexibility when it comes to your retirement planning as a freelancer. We're going to dive into a couple of the most popular options today, the solo 401k and the SEP IRA, and break down which one might be right for you.
Perfect. Let's start with the solo 401k. The name makes it sound a little intimidating, like it's only for people who really understand investing.
It does sound fancy, right? But it's really not as complicated as you might think, especially if you've ever had a traditional 401k before. The best part about a solo 401k is that you get to wear two hats. You're both the employee and the employer. This basically means you can contribute both as an employee and an employer, which can lead to higher contribution limits compared to other plans.
Wait, higher contribution limits. Now you've got my attention. Tell me more.
So for 2024, you can actually contribute up to $23,000 as an employee. But here's where it gets really interesting. You can also contribute up to 25% of your net adjusted self-employment income as an employer.
Hold on. Net adjusted self-employment income. Can you break that down for me?
Basically, think of it as your business income after you've deducted all your allowable business expenses. So it's the income you're actually taxed on. And that number, that's what determines the 25% contribution limit for the employer part of the solo 401k. The best part, there's a combined limit for both employee and employer contributions of $67,500 for 2024.
Wow, that's a lot more than you can contribute to a traditional 401k. Are there any downsides to contributing so much? Like, what's the catch?
The main thing to remember is that when you contribute to a solo 401k, you're actually reducing your taxable income right now, but you will have to pay taxes on that money later on when you withdraw it in retirement. However, a lot of solo 401k plans offer a Roth option.
Roth, like a Roth IRA.
You got it. With a Roth solo 401k, you make your contributions after taxes, meaning all that sweet, sweet growth on your money is tax-free.
Yeah.
And when you withdraw it in retirement, no taxes.
So you're basically paying taxes up front to avoid paying them later, especially if you think you'll be in a higher tax bracket when you retire. That's pretty smart.
It's definitely something to think about. Now, if the solo 401k still sounds a little too complicated, another great option for freelancers is the SEP IRA. That stands for Simplified Employee Pension.
Simplified. I like the sound of that already.
Right. And it really is known for being easy to use, especially when your income is all over the place.
Does it offer the same tax advantages as the solo 401k?
It does. So with a SEP IRA, you're also contributing directly from your self-employment income up to 25%, just like the solo 401k, and with the same maximum limit of $67,500 for 2024. One of the big differences is that with a SEP IRA, you don't have to contribute every single year, which gives you more flexibility during those leaner times.
That flexibility is really nice. Are there any downsides to a SEP IRA compared to a solo 401k?
The main difference is in the contribution limit if you're also employed somewhere else and contributing to a separate 401k. With a SEP IRA, your combined contributions to both plans can't go over that $67,500 annual limit. The solo 401k has its own separate limit.
I see. So if you're only self-employed, that limitation isn't as big of a deal. It really comes down to picking the plan that fits your specific situation right now.
You got it. And hey, there's always the option of opening a traditional or Roth IRA in addition to a solo 401k or SEP IRA. Those have lower contribution limits, $7,000 for 2024, plus an extra $1,000 catch-up contribution if you're 50 or older, but they can be really useful for adding even more to your retirement savings.
So many options. This is great. It's empowering to know that even if I don't have a company retirement plan, I can still create a solid plan that works for me. Speaking of being proactive, let's move on to another crucial aspect of self employment that often gets overlooked: insurance.
Oh, for sure. People don't always think about it right away, but having the right insurance is like having a safety net when you're the one responsible for your own well-being.
So, where do we even start? There are so many different types of insurance out there, it's overwhelming.
You're not wrong. Let's start with the big one, health insurance. Since you're no longer covered under an employer's plan, you'll need to find an individual plan, either through the health insurance marketplace or directly from an insurance company.
I've heard that navigating the health insurance marketplace can be a real pain. Any tips?
Don't be afraid to ask for help. There are tons of resources out there, and a lot of places have certified assisters who can walk you through the whole process. They'll help you find a plan that fits your budget and actually makes sense for your needs. And don't forget about subsidies. Depending on your income, you might qualify for financial help that lowers your monthly premiums.
Subsidies are always good. Okay, so we've got health insurance covered, but what other types of insurance are important for freelancers?
Well, as a freelancer, your ability to work is directly tied to your income, right? That's why disability insurance is so important. It basically acts like an income replacement if you're unable to work because of an illness or an injury.
So it's like a safety net for your income, making sure you can still pay your bills even when you can't work. That makes a lot of sense, especially if your job is physically demanding or if you're the main source of income for your family.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about liability insurance, which is all about protecting you from those potential lawsuits. There are two main types that freelancers should definitely know about: professional liability insurance and general liability insurance.
Two types of liability insurance. What's the difference?
Okay, so professional liability insurance, sometimes called errors and omissions insurance, is all about protecting your work itself. It covers you against claims of negligence, mistakes, things like that. As a graphic designer, this would cover you if a client claimed you didn't deliver on a project or there was some kind of copyright issue with your work.
That makes sense. I've definitely had some clients who were, let's say, particular about their designs. So if one of those preferences turned into a legal battle, my professional liability insurance would have my back.
Absolutely. It gives you that peace of mind knowing you're covered if a client isn't happy with the work you did. Now, general liability insurance is a little different. It's more focused on physical incidents. So this is what protects you if someone gets hurt at your business, like in your home office, or if you accidentally damage a client's property while you're on the job, or even from things like slander or libel.
So if I'm at a client meeting and I accidentally spill coffee on their super expensive rug, that's where general liability insurance comes in.
Exactly. Or let's say you're taking your equipment to a photo shoot and it gets damaged on the way there. General liability insurance can help cover those costs.
This is amazing. I feel like I'm getting a personalized financial planning session, which is exactly why I love the deep dive.
Well, that's what we're here for.
Yeah. That's right. Okay, so to recap, when it comes to insurance for freelancers, it's not optional. We've got health insurance for medical bills, disability insurance to protect our income, and liability insurance to shield us from legal trouble. It's like the trifecta of protection. This has been incredibly helpful. I feel like we've covered a year's worth of financial planning in just this one deep dive.
We have covered a lot of ground, but it's true. Everyone who's self-employed needs this kind of crash course in managing their finances. It really is. It's like that secret knowledge you wish you had from the start, right?
Totally. But honestly, when it comes down to it, it's all about taking charge of your finances. Like you're the CEO of your own money now.
That's a great way to put it. You're in the driver's seat, which is amazing, but it also means making those smart choices for yourself.
I love that. So, to all our listeners out there who are either freelancing already or thinking about taking the leap, what are those key takeaways we've talked about today that you really want them to remember?
Well, we've covered so much good stuff today, but if I had to pick a few, managing that irregular income is huge. Mastering those quarterly taxes, another big one. And of course, setting yourself up for a comfortable retirement, even without that company plan. It's all about those little steps you can take now to set yourself up for success later, both financially and in your freelance career.
And don't forget about that emergency fund. That's our safety net for when things go wrong, which, let's face it, they sometimes do.
Oh, absolutely. Having that cushion of savings just gives you such peace of mind, which lets you focus on what really matters, creating amazing work.
So true. This has been an awesome deep dive. I've learned so much. Thank you so much for breaking all of this down into stuff we can actually use in our own lives. Before we wrap up, any final words of wisdom for our listeners as they navigate the exciting and sometimes scary world of freelancing?
Just remember, you don't have to do this alone. There are so many resources out there, people who can help you find the right health insurance, set up those retirement accounts, and make sense of those tax forms. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
It's like building your own financial dream team, a tax pro, a financial advisor, maybe even a business coach, whatever you need to feel supported.
Exactly. And as your business grows and your goals change, your financial plan might need to change too, right? So just stay informed, be open to adjusting things, and never stop learning.
I love it. This has been an incredible deep dive into the ins and outs of managing your money as a freelancer. We've taken all those complicated things and broken them down into manageable steps. You've got this.
Absolutely. And don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. Happy freelancing.
Until next time on the deep dive, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
It's true, we did cover a lot today, but that's kind of the point of a deep dive, right? Get all that info out there.
That's right. We want to give everyone those tools, those resources that they maybe didn't even know they needed.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, it's about realizing that you are in control. Now you're the one making the decisions for your financial well-being.
I love that. Be your own financial advocate, right? No more relying on someone else to handle it for you.
You got it.
Uh,
So to everyone out there listening, whether you're knee-deep in freelance life or just dipping your toes in the water, remember what we talked about today. Managing that inconsistent income, figuring out those quarterly taxes, making a plan for retirement, even if it's not through a traditional job, these are the things that will set you up for success in the long run, both financially and in your career.
And don't forget that emergency fund. That's our safety net when things get tough. Because let's be honest, they will at some point.
Oh, they definitely will. Having that financial cushion just takes so much stress off your plate, which frees you up to focus on what you're good at.
Absolutely. This has been amazing. I've learned so much, and I know our listeners have too. Thank you so much for breaking all of this down into something we can actually understand and use.
Of course, that's what I'm here for.
Before we say goodbye for today, any final words of wisdom for our listeners as they head out into the world of freelancing, ready to conquer their finances?
Just remember that you don't have to do this alone. There are so many people and resources out there ready to help, whether it's finding the right health insurance, setting up those retirement accounts, or finally making sense of those tax forms.
It's like building your own financial support team, right? Surround yourself with experts who can guide you.
That's it. And as your business changes and grows, don't be afraid to adapt your financial plan too. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and don't be afraid to adjust your strategy as you go.
I love it. This has been an awesome deep dive into the world of self-employment finances. We've busted some myths, explored the options, and hopefully given you the confidence to take control of your financial future. You've got this.
As you do. And feel free to reach out if any questions come up along the way. Happy freelancing, everyone.
And until next time on the deep dive, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.